Wow. Thank you, Dad. What an incredible day for my family, friends, and I, one that we'll cherish forever. It's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Thank you very much. On a sunny and breezy morning, 27 years ago, I bumped into my coach here, Bob Harris, a few hours before my last match for Fairfield Prep later that day, which was the state finals played in Hamden that year. I was going for my third state title in a row. He asked me simply, "How are you feeling?" I paused and said, "I don't know, it's kind of a big day, I guess." He smirked and said exactly this to me, "They're all big days from now on. When things go wrong, you'll figure them out." And he walked away. That was the only conversation Bob and I had all day, till after the match was played and over. He wasn't being a disinterested coach. He knew that what I needed most was something more meaningful, beyond simple X's and O's. I needed good old-fashioned belief and faith and an encouraging word. As crazy as it sounded with my record, that match would solely come down to my belief and my perspective on what was happening. Not what should have happened on paper, or what other people thought the result should be. Also, I did notice the phrase, "when things go wrong," instead of "if things go wrong." Sure enough, things went south a few hours later when I dropped my first set in almost 4 years wearing a prep uniform, and I faced a 3-love deficit in the deciding set. Exactly how I got into that deficit is a blur, but I remember a few thoughts I had. What a defeat would mean to me personally, what my now blemished record would do to all my hard work, what my friends would think, what if Notre Dame, where I had been recruited in college, decided they didn't want me. It was the full spectrum of what now seemed like irrational, overly catastrophic, overly egotistical thoughts, but which were very real and very vivid at the time. In simpler terms, what was happening was quite clear. I was what athletes call choking. I was about to let the gravity of the situation overtake me and define me. Then the light bulb went off. I changed my mind. I came to terms with accepting my impending defeat. I told myself if I were to lose, at least do so with dignity and by competing, not withering. After each point from that time forward in that match, I vowed to tell myself one thing that was important to me, or that had made me happy and thankful during my time at prep. I started thanking my family, having a few laughs to myself, recalling fun times with friends, remembering specific teachers, interactions with my coaches and teammates, and so on. Basically, I was having my very own therapy session in between points and the third set of the state finals. I tricked my brain into thinking about anything but the outcome on the tennis court for about the next 45 minutes, right up until the last point was played. At the end, it seemed the result simply happened to happen, and it was somehow turned in my favor. To this day, I still couldn't tell you tactically how I won that match. In that day, I unknowingly was gifted the education of a lifetime. Those tense moments I was about to let flutter away had nothing to do with me as a tennis player, or what I might have perceived as some type of cruel injustice happening to me on the tennis court. It was about my assessment of a stressful situation and how I chose to respond. Interestingly enough, the exact same scenario, the same deficit, brink of defeat, perceived, quote, disaster, then victory, played out the exact same way 4 years later in my last collegiate match. And similar scenarios played out in other areas of my life as well through the years. But a certain cliche really is true. The character reveal, the real lessons, the real important stuff are always found right in the midst of the journey and not at the final destination, or in my case, the final outcome. Life lessons were blaring in my head that day, and many others at prep. Lessons formed here about focusing on others, and not about how unfair it would be if I lost a tennis match. Be a man for others. Be a man about others. Never lose perspective about what's going on around me. Cherish and glorify the competition, the work I'm doing while I'm doing it, not just the result of it. Lastly, if other people, or even one person around me, has faith that I can, quote, figure it out, then I should too. The time I spent at prep as a student athlete is filled with lessons like these. They provide further proof that the word student in the term student athlete comes first for a very good reason. My time is almost up here tonight, but I can't finish my speech without a few thoughts about the other people in my life. When one thinks of an elite level tennis player, certain images come to mind. Those of a lonely warrior, self-sufficient and searching for his or her next conquest, isolated with his or her thoughts for a few hours at a time, singularly on display in front of a crowd of people, all come to mind. It sounds like torture, and it is, until we remember parents, family, friends, teammates, coaches, teachers, trainers. For the truly great players, again and again, they're able to look around at where the seeds of true nourishment for the soul grow, and then to be aware that the sport, while lonely, isolated, and torturous on the outside, can be anything but those things on the inside, with the right people around you. So the irony is not lost on me, and 27 years later, in the exact same spot, many of the exact same people who lifted me up are right here, right now, doing it again. I want to congratulate the other inductees. This is an honor that, like me, you will cherish and treasure with future generations, kids and grandkids, to be sure. Thank you to the entire prep community for being here tonight to help us celebrate. Have a great evening. Godspeed.